Hello and welcome to the official podcast of Palate Exposure, featuring Ilona Thompson, a podcast for those seeking the ultimate in wine, food, and travel. Each week she interviews winemakers, chefs, celebrities, and a variety of guests that shape the way we enjoy life.
Hello, this is Ilona Thompson with Palate Exposure. It's my favorite time, podcast time. And I'm here with Christopher Longoria. I've gotten to know him a bit. I had a cocktail class that he kindly and generously shared with me, and it was a blast. I cannot remember having this much fun, particularly during COVID. We'll talk all about that. You guys need details on that for sure. So you guys from the Bay Area may have heard of him. He is a bar manager at Che Fico. It's quite a popular spot. Impossible to get a seat there because of his prowess. The cocktail program is extraordinary. Very cerebral and kind of reduced, edited cocktails, the likes of which I don't believe I've come across in any other instance. So it's a very special place. When things open up, you need to get your butt over there and try and get a table, and then give me some hot tips how to do it. So we're here today to get to know him, which I'm super excited about. I know a little bit, not much, not enough anyway for my taste about his professional life, but I also want to get to know him as a fellow human, because so far all my interactions with him have left me utterly impressed. He's a great person, so I'm excited for you guys. So Christopher, we all come from somewhere. As a famous Saint-Exupéry once put it, we're all from childhood. So maybe we can talk a little bit about yours and your formative years and kind of the background.
Yeah, absolutely. Would love to share that with you. I was born in Galveston, Texas.
Really? Oh my
Yep.
goodness.
Born in Galveston, Texas, but when people ask me where I'm from, I tell them I am from shrimp and cumin and salt water and kitchens and humidity. That is how I remember where I'm from. You know what I mean?
It's very associative, right?
Yeah. Blue crabs, peeling shrimp boats, humidity. Yeah, man. Mosquitoes, grandma's house, smells, a lot of smells, you know what I mean? But yeah, so I was born in Galveston, Texas. Spent all my formative years there. When I was younger, I kind of had a knack for, my mom helped me learn about poetry and writing and listening to songwriters. And, we would sit at the kitchen table and listen to, Willie Nelson and Jim Croce and Bob Dylan and, a lot of the songwriting generation. So, I picked up on that really quickly, and it's kind of just what I've always done my entire life. And it grew into, something that I wanted to do basically for the rest of my life. I thought it was either going to be a professional basketball player, which I was not even close to being, or some sort of artist. And it ends up that poetry became a really big element in my life. And I pursued that the entire time I was in, I pursued it through hip hop, actually. You know what I mean? So I was learning a lot of hip hop, learning a lot of lyrics. I was breakdancing, graffiti, all that kind of stuff. And then I didn't, I wasn't good enough to get a basketball scholarship. And I was trying my hardest and I didn't know what to do. So I spent 1 year in junior college in Galveston. And then I saw they had a culinary program there at Galveston College. And that's when I saw people making sauces of types. I mean, I always grew up in the kitchen. In the South, you're always in the kitchen. You're either on the front porch or you're in the kitchen. You know what I mean? And so I was always in the kitchen watching my parents cook and all that type of stuff. But that was the first time it looked real, like professional to me, even though it wasn't, not, I was just underexposed at the time. But, and then I thought I wanted to be a saucier. So cooking and all that type of stuff was in my mind. Then I got a job at a place called Fisherman's Wharf. And, when it was really slow, they let me pull beers. And I was just like, wow, that's pretty fun. It was, because it was always a packed restaurant. And I just always saw the bar team members just look like having the most fun in the whole restaurant while everybody else was like stressing out. These kids were like making drinks and laughing and jumping around. And I was like, I want that job. so, did that. Anyways, I found a way to get to school. I ended up going to, am I moving too fast as far as the story? There's a lot in between.
Oh no, I think it's a great pace, and the only question I have so far is Fisherman's Wharf in Texas, not in San Francisco, right?
Yeah. It's from the same group that originally opened Landry's a long time ago. Like y'all know, like Willie G's and Joe's Crab Shack, all that. Yeah, this was like at the very beginning before any of that stuff. And so anyways, I found a way to get to school, and I found a liberal arts college in the Midwest called Beloit College. And during that time, it's going to be, I can't explain all of this, but I had 7 friends die in a really short period of time. And so I was like, I need to get out of here, because if I don't get out of here, something weird is going to happen to me. And I felt that pressure. And so I found a way to get to college. I went to luckily I went to a really amazing school, Beloit College. And because I had gone through so much, I was doing a lot of writing. And then one of my professors picked up on it, and he's like, why don't you put on a little hip hop show at our campus stage, lounge, whatever.
Yeah.
And so I did. And the feedback I got from that just really made me feel like I found my voice. You know what I mean? And then those years in college, all I did was write and study and write. And then my junior year in college, I met my mentor named John Rosenwald, who is an amazing poet, amazing activist. And I mean, I could go on forever about him. Just he's the real deal. And he gave me a book called Growth of a Poet's Mind by William Wordsworth. And it's a huge book. And I went for it. And that opened up my mind in so many ways. And then I knew, like, I was confident that I was basically a poet by nature. And because of that, it led me to a lot of fun avenues in life. Some tough, some fun, definitely colorful. Yeah, and so then I decided I wanted to go to grad school for poetry, and so I did that, and studied with some really amazing poets and writers, and studied with a lot of the original beats that were here, David Meltzer, Joanne Kiger, Snyder, Tom Clark, those are a lot of poets that I studied with. And that took, that more so than like writing, that was learning how to read. Like I studied alphabets, I studied the history of alphabets, I studied etymologies, I studied epistemologies, I studied how the human species went from a culture that relies on morality and instead moved to literacy. So I studied that. I studied global systems, all this crazy stuff. It was just like, once I hit grad school, that level of knowledge that was presented to me was just like out of control. I was like almost drowning in so many intelligent, well-cultured, life experienced people. You know what I mean? And just rubbing shoulders with those people, I learned infinite amount of culture and history and so forth. You know what I mean?
That's
So
good.
then,
yeah,
it was crazy, man. I studied a lot. I was the definition of a starving artist. I was living off bagels, like literally, and bagels and Gatorade, I think it was. No, Snapple. It was iced tea Snapple. That was it. And I was just like, oh my God, this is gnarly. But at the time, I was so activated in my mind and being challenged every day. There was a real payoff to it. You know what I mean? So I got signed to a little arts collective and hip hop label called Future Primitive Sound. I was finishing grad school here at the same time. And then I went to a party that was a birthday party for this really legendary artist named Doze Green. He's a hip hop painter, but he's beyond that at this point. He's up there on the Dundee White Basquiat level. Anyway, so I got invited to his birthday party, and as like a young b-boy, I was like, this is the shit. This is it. And so got there, and my label mates were there, and they were cutting records, and Doze is obviously the man of the hour, and I really didn't know where to put myself in the party because I always looked up to a lot of these people. So all these type of cats are OGs to me, and I'm just like, luckily I got invited. And anyways, I saw the bar owner, his name was Roland Reichel. I saw him getting destroyed because we just packed the place. You know what I mean? And it was just him and like one other person, and they were just they were drowning. They were in the shits for real. And I didn't, I felt stupid being a wallflower. I was just like, what am I gonna do? So I was like, I gotta appear somehow. And so I just went to the guy and I was like, hey man, do you need any help? Because you're getting destroyed right now. And he was just like, yeah, dude. So he gave me like bushels of mint. He's like, because the drink of the hour was something called Jinju, and it was ginger syrup and lemon and mint and soju and soda. And it was just, everybody was crushing them. And so I was pulling all this mint and I was pulling the beers because I knew how to pull beers from Fisherman's Wharf. And so I was just, I was breakdancing behind the bar, pulling mint and pulling beers. And when that night ended, he was like, do you want to come back tomorrow? And I was like, yes, that's exactly what I would like to do. And then I started tending bar in San Francisco.
That's absolutely extraordinary. I mean,
yeah, there's a lot in there that I skipped over, believe me.
No, this is great stuff. Here you are, like the sponge that absorbed this extraordinary amount of data and historical context and linguistical stuff. And all of a sudden, boom, that foray into bartending, it's like, where was that even on the horizon in any sense, or was it a complete accident?
I don't know. When I was in college, I used to pretend like I was a bartender. I would turn my bookshelf around and make really disgusting drinks, and I would like take like store-bought Mai Tai mix and put it with gin. I didn't even have ice or anything, you know what I mean? It was just like, it was an alternative to a beer, and college kids like that stuff. So I was just pretending. And so it was pretty funny. So I think it was always somewhere in there. I think probably, when I was at Fisherman's Wharf, it somehow romanticized and glamorized that role a bit for me. But at the same time, I think the skill set and the personality and the nature of a genuine bar person, I think it was natural for me to be that. You know what I mean? To be a host.
Absolutely. No, I mean, it's starting to kind of make sense to me as to why you're so extraordinarily creative and artistic in the truest sense of the word. I mean, it comes from such a fabulous origin and so much to pull from. I mean, your command of the language in the 3D format. I worked as a translator many moons ago, and that gave me a really good clue how powerful language is.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
You can change something with a comma or a tone or just, substitution of a word. It's amazing stuff that, we don't think about enough. And you were exposed to it so massively, so early on as, a young adult in your literally formative years, that it had to have had a monumental impact, and it had to have brought so much value to what you do today, because not only it's artistic and creative and therapeutic in some ways.
Yes,
absolutely. Yeah, that is so cool.
Yeah, so I mean, I think I say this often to when I do certain interviews with people when the window is there, and I think this is that, but and we could get into this later because I probably would like to, but I just think it's really important, given this time, how people view, romanticize, glamorize being behind the bar. I think it's more valuable and more important to live your life and have your experiences and imbue the bar with who you are, versus letting the industry and the culture of the bar determine who you are. You know what I mean? I think that makes the environment and the context a lot more real and interesting, and a lot more easy to be attracted to. And I think that's important. I think if all you are is what the bar has given you, then I don't necessarily find that to be an interesting space. You know what I mean? I think it's way cooler when you imbue the bar with your experiences and your interactions, and I can see just a whole chain reaction occurring just simply from that. You know what I mean? And so we can get more into that later, but I think that's very important.
It is definitely important. I just want to highlight it for a moment to you guys, because what you said right now is profound. You're a human being that was deeply connected to yourself. You were perhaps forced into that space because you had to grow up quickly and you had to mature and you saw so much tragedy so early on in life. And I'm truly sorry about that. But what it did for you is that it kind of forced you into this space that's very vulnerable, especially things like poetry and creativity, that outlet that you chose, in this case, words, I think had, such a monumental impact on your self-discovery. Some people just don't get to that road until later in life. You were thrust into it early on. And I think it just prepared you so much more, and it matured you so much quicker, and qualitatively there's so much breadth there and depth, that I just want you guys to understand that you happen to be in a bar, and this is your current iteration of yourself professionally, not exclusively, by the way, because you do other things, but this is what a lot of people know you as a bartender extraordinaire that can make this, cocktails that make you think and smile and just really elicit fabulous reactions. But it comes from a place of self-acknowledgement and self-awareness. And that's why I think it's so important what you said. You come as you are into the space, and then you work with the space as you.
Yes, exactly that.
That's great. And we'll definitely get into it more. So just so we keep track chronologically a little bit,
Sure.
It's, it's not that it's important, the milestones per se, but I think it's just interesting to learn where your journey took you, like geographically, how you wound up in the Bay Area. Tell us a bit more.
Well, I wound up in the Bay Area because, my sister had been living here probably about, I think it was like 12 years before I got here. I got here and I came to visit for Thanksgiving, like 99. And then, so I would come for like little holidays, and I was like, wow, like it's just such a different life than the grind I was used to and the pressures I was used to. And just the quality of life seems so much more open and cleaner and, healthier actually. And so my sister was here, and then I was still an undergrad in college. And then my brother moved out here thinking he wanted to do tech, right? But obviously he didn't do that. But he was young as well, so that was his way to get out of what we were involved in. And now my brother was out here and my sister's out here, and they're my best friends. And then I was doing really well with hip hop at the time, and I was doing a lot of spoken word, and I was like doing shows at the Green Mill in Chicago and the New Yorkian and all, the Justice League over here, all the, did all the competitions and all the features and all that type of stuff, and it was fun. And then it caught the eye of my friend Mark Herlihy, who ran and created the Future Primitive Sound Collective. And that was back in the time when San Francisco was really about its artists. And, we were painters, and we were, breakdancers, and we were DJs, and we were musicians, and obviously, poetry stuff too, and MCs. And anyways, he saw me perform at a show with Michael Franti and Saul Williams, I think it was, at the Justice League, and he was just like, whoa, what is going on with this? He approached me after that, and he's like, hey man, I want you to be part of our crew, sign you to this label. And I was just visiting at the time, and so I just had it, and then I got accepted to I chose to be part of a graduate program to learn from the beats. And so I had my sister out here, I had my brother out here, I had many creative outlets out here, and all signs said go. You know what I mean? And believe me, I didn't have no money. I was sleeping on my brother's couch. I was sleeping on friends. It was rough, man. There was times I would go to the donut shop, the 24-hour donut shops, and there's a way that you can hold a book in your head at the same time to make it look like you're reading. But I was like totally sleeping because I was just like, dude, how do I make this happen? Because I literally was a starving artist. And then college, undergrad college debt was about to start coming in. You know what I mean? And it was just like, what is the move, dude? So I made it work though. So, all signs said go out here to move to San Francisco, everything but the finances pretty much.
Yeah. And it's an expensive proposition.
Yeah.
I mean, even people that work sometimes wind up couch surfing because the cost of living is so high now, but it also was back in the 90s. I mean, it's not that much different. It just adjusted to inflation. So for you to kind of be thrust in this environment and having to make it, that had to have been stressful.
Yeah, it was very stressful. It was extremely stressful. I think I found a place to live on Haight and Broderick was my first place, and it was a room that fit a bed and a chair maybe. And then and then I had a big old computer that was like a hand-me-down computer from somebody else to do my grad school work. And I made a weird makeshift desk out of some kind of weird table I found on the street, and living that bohemian life for real. Lived off Progresso soup at that time. That's what it was. I remember having like just hella cans of Progresso soup in the cabinet, and my roommate being like, is that all you eat? I'm like, yes, that's all I got. You know what I mean? But at the same time, I was still very inspired. I was inspired. I was like learning. I was like, I wasn't feeling low. I wasn't feeling down. It was just, hey man, like learn to have riches when you don't have riches and find out what those are for yourself and then enjoy them.
San Francisco is definitely a very stimulating environment for any artist, I think, in any realm. I mean, you have such a diverse, background between music and hip hop and writing, and you're populating so many spaces that I'm sure that you were constantly on, and creating and in your mind, if nothing else, and then externalizing it in some regard. So I mean, I'm just picturing this young, vibrant person that is so engaged and experiencing so many colors and sounds and textures and thoughts, and it was just all coming fast and furious.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I embodied so many different vibrations, you know what I mean? I was just like, there was some that were like, I'd be, breakdancing at a club, and then I'd be reading, Rilke, and then I'd be, trying to learn how to make sauces from a friend of mine who was a cook at Aqua at the time, you know what I mean? And, and then I would cut records to have little DJ, that is, and then like little things like that just to make a little side money, and then wake up early and get tossed a bagel from my friend who was the baker at Tartine on the way to the mission to class, and that'd be my lunch breakfast. I had to time it right, because you can't eat too early because you're gonna be hungry later in the day. So you got to time it right. You know what I mean? You got to hit it like right in the middle, so you're not super hungry and you're not gonna be hungry way later. So little tricks like that is survival. You know what I mean? But yeah, definitely. I mean, I would smoke a fat joint and then do a painting of Rimbaud, and people would be like, what is going on? You know what I mean? So, and then at the same time, I had just, because I went to grad school in the Midwest, but I also went to an arts program in Chicago that I stayed, and I learned a lot there. And we studied a lot of jazz. And so jazz was super big. Jazz is super big in the South, down where I'm from too. So like, New Orleans style jazz, you know what I mean? So I was studying a lot of jazz, and I was studying a lot of hip hop, and I was studying a lot of poetry, and I was trying to learn how to cook, and bartending wasn't even on my map at the time. You know what I mean? It was just, I think I had my first mojito at Foreign Cinema, the first year it opened, I think, or maybe the second year it opened, and I was like, I didn't know things could taste good. I didn't know alcohol could taste good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, they make some good mojitos from memory.
They crushed it. I killed it, and I killed that mojito, and my sister looked at me with a face of terror, just like, what are you doing? I was like, it was good. She's like, yeah, you're going to feel that. I was just like, no, I'm totally fine. Wait a minute. And just got bent, you know what I mean? So,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
true story.
Oh, I believe that. It's just fascinating to hear you talk about all the genres that you kind of cross-pollinated, but there's definitely a commonality there. There's a lot of heart and soul, and there's a lot of raw nature to everything that you just described, whether it's dance, music. I think
something that ties, I apologize for interrupting you, but
that's okay.
I think something that ties it in, or rather one of the principles that ties those together, is improvisation.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's all about improv. It's like you have to trust yourself on so many levels. You have to trust all your extensions, creatively, expressively, intuitively, instinctively, intellectually. You got to trust everything in yourself to trust when you see a moment for improvisation, right? And then when you have that moment, you have to feel it, and you have to know the right context in which to express it. And then, bam, then it's a thing. Then it really happens. You know what I mean? And that's the mindset I'm always trying. I think I'm always just in that mindset. I mean, it's happening right now a little bit. It'll happen more in a few minutes. I had a long night, but once I start waking up, believe me.
This is so. I could just watch you or hear you talk, and it's just so energizing. You don't have to be discussing anything in particular or anything profound. You just have an energy about you that I've never experienced with anyone else.
That's very nice of you to say. Thank you.
No, it's the truth. And that improvisational piece, I mean, having the courage and that connection to yourself, but also, you know, I am pretty timid when it comes to speaking publicly. I force myself to do it, of course, but it's not something that comes naturally. So kind of getting up and showing up in front of an audience in whatever form, whether it's dance or DJing or, you know, reciting poetry or any such thing. I think it's a ton of courage, but it's that piece that I was talking about. It's that self-awareness that, you know, you can really get into that mindset with yourself before you ever can produce anything for somebody else. And the fact that it comes so organically to you is absolutely fascinating.
You know, thank you again. That's highly complimentary. I'm very grateful for those words. But it really is about the people that taught me, like my mom especially, my sister and my brother. You know, they're just amazing artists. They can touch anything and flowers come out of it. It's crazy. You know what I mean? They're just really, really, really awesome people. And, you know, I'm really just, you know, a result of being in a context with really creative people. Like, if you met these people, you just, you know, they'll change your mind about a lot of things.
That's amazing. You know, they say, show me who your friends are and I'll tell you about you. It obviously,
Yeah, I've heard that, yeah.
You've surrounded yourself with people you just, you know, it's an ecosystem almost that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, I mean, the whole creative nature and trusting it all comes from my mom.
oh, she sounds like one special lady. So there you are in San Francisco, surrounded by all this, you know, cultural stimulating environment, you know, probably staying up late, doing all kinds of
Yeah. I don't know how to sleep. I still don't know how to sleep very well.
yeah.
I was up last night until 4 a.m. helping ghostwrite for a comic that I work with. And
Oh, there's another thing we haven't even covered, ghostwriting. So you were at this point thinking your career is going to evolve somewhere in the musical / you know, hip hop.
Yeah, I was either going to be, you know, a musician, or, you know, a recording artist is the industry term, whatever. But it was either that or or I wanted to be a professor. And I wanted to be a professor of a very particular poet named William Blake. I'm sure a lot of people know that. But I wanted to study at a place called the Ransom Center at the University of Texas. It has the biggest William Blake collection in the world. But he was such an interesting poet. He was just raw. He was like, you know, if Wu-Tang was a poet, it'd be William Blake. You know what I mean? He was like, he's an anomaly. You know what I mean? I mean, we could go on and on about William Blake. People have tried to understand him for years. I just happened to have a natural knack of understanding a little bit of some things that he would try to do, and maybe his sensibilities, and that was my guy. And so I almost went on to pursue like a doctorate, but after grad school, as liberal as it was and as like cool as it was, you know, I met like Jim Carroll and studied with him and studied Ezra Pound in the basement of this crazy professor who had these like 6-foot tablets, and he would color code the different tones of language and all this crazy stuff. And that's very liberal as far as like education goes, but I still felt trapped in a structure that didn't feel normal to me. And, you know, if you really are listening specifically to the romantic poets, they're trying to live life. They're just raw. They're trying to feel everything, you know? And to be in an academic environment that absolutely extracts the soul of what it is they think they're praising was just too hypocritical for me to sit with. And I chose to stop education after grad school, but I still kind of always have the inclination to want to somehow be a professor. I thought it would always be cool to be an adjunct professor, to where they invite you to teach, you know, a course or something like that. Because I love school, man. I'm one of those weird people that just like love school, but I didn't love school because, you know, I'm fucking in class. I love school because of the social element and the real relationships. Like the most learning I learned when I was in college was going to my mentor's office on a Friday night. Everybody else is, you know, doing their thing. And I would see him. He had a really cool office. It's hard to explain, but, you know, it'd be snowing. You'd see him in this office surrounded by these books, and he'd just be reading. And I was like, that is the most gangster shit. Like, what is that? And so, like, I would just go knock on his window and he'd be like, what's going on? And I would just badger him, and we would study and learn, and we would sit there and read poems back to each other. And, so for me, it was just, school was a really cool thing. So I love school, I love learning. I love being around archaic documents. I love looking at old maps, you know what I mean? All that kind of stuff. I used to go to the library, San Francisco Public Library, when I had no money. And then I would just look at the maps, you know what I mean? One of the last books of poetry I was working on was studying how to pick locks. And then I wanted to write a poem for each lock that I learned how to pick. And you would learn how to pick this lock, but it would be in a poem form, you know what I mean? And I thought that was kind of a cool thing. I never finished it, but it was that, and I was working on a book of poems about boxing, or boxers rather. And that was kind of cool.
The conclusion of this interview can be found in the next podcast, already available for your download. Thanks again for tuning in to the official podcast of Palate Exposure, featuring Ilona Thompson.